Welcome back to the Faith Walk. And today we're going to be looking at part 9 of this 12-part series, looking at and studying the book of James. And in our last few studies, we've been looking very hard at the subject of faith and how that it applies to our life. And today is no different as we look at the final few verses of James chapter 4. And we won't waste much time today. We'll jump right into it, beginning with verse 13 of James chapter 4. And it says this. It says, "Go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city, and continue there a year, and buy and sell, and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away." James is saying, hey, out of all of the sins that there are, I really believe that one of the biggest sins is that of the sin of pride, the sin of arrogance, where we decide, hey, I'm going to make these plans. And I'm going to go ahead and put it on the calendar and start making plans towards this. It might be something as simple as, hey, next year I'm going to pack all of my things and I'm going to be moving to Dallas, Texas, and going to set up residence in Dallas, Texas, and begin working and going to school. And it just sounds like a good thing to do. That's where I'm going to make my plans. That's the direction that I'm headed. But yet we don't stop and say, Lord, if this is your will, then I want you to make everything work out. And I want you to give me that job ahead of time. I want you to line everything up ahead of me so that I can make the right steps towards making a move toward Dallas, Texas, if that's what you desire for me to do, if that's where you desire for me to be. But it's when I set my own plans, when I decide I'm going to pursue my own things, that sin of pride, that sin of arrogance, where I start making plans for tomorrow, really becomes a problem. It's not that we should not make plans. We're instructed elsewhere in the Word that we should make plans, but to the point where we're making plans for our lives, things even as close as plans for tomorrow, without running to God and saying, Lord, I want to follow after you. I want to seek your will in all that I say and all that I do. If my steps that I'm planning towards for tomorrow are according to your will, in line, in step with what you love about me and what you have for me, Lord, if it's not you that is ordering these steps that I'm making, then Lord, I don't want to do it. That's the mindset that we should really be having. That's the type of faith that we should be exercising and walking in. Is I don't want to do anything if it's not God-centered. I don't want to do anything if it's not God that is ordering my steps. We're told that the steps of a righteous man availeth much. The Lord, He is in it. Those steps are ordered ahead of time. He's already put them into practice, put them into plan. Go ahead and He's lined everything up for us to have success, to reach success. But it's when you decide to put plans in motion that are plans that we're putting together without consulting with the Lord about, well, that's when things start to become a problem. That's when things become a sin. That's what we saw here in verses 13 and verse 14. James also says, so what is your life? What is your life? It's nothing more than a vapor. We don't know when it's going to end, but we know that when we're taking a look at our life, and then we're taking a look at the length of eternity, our life is so small. So why would I sit here and make these big plans for the future without talking to God, without wanting to follow after His will for my life? Our life is short. It's like a vapor, James says. And I like the picture of, you take a pot of water and you stick it on the stove and you see the steam begin to rise up off of that stove, out of that pot, and we see that steam for just a second, and then it's gone. It's gone. Like a vapor of water, our life it's short. And we have to be seeking after God in all that we do. Making plans, rushing ahead, making plans without consulting the Lord, it's arrogant on our behalf. It's prideful. It's even sinful. Continuing on in verse 15, James says that for that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or to do that. But now ye rejoice in your boasting. All such rejoicing is evil. When I get excited about things that I have planned for my future, apart from God, again, without consulting with Him, without seeking after Him in all that I do, then I get myself into trouble, and then I shouldn't be doing those things. James tells us, look, it's if the Lord wills it that I follow this road. It's if the Lord wills it that I should live even tomorrow. That is exactly what that I should be chasing. That's exactly how that I should conduct all of my major decisions. All of my major plans should be run through God. James' final verse in this chapter, as he closes it out, it's a verse that I'm very familiar with. As a child, I actually, every time I would get into trouble for a very long time, my father would have me sit down and write this verse over and over and over again at our kitchen table, so that I would begin to understand and to learn that even though I think I'm doing the right thing, and sometimes even when I'm not doing the right thing and I know it, I'm doing a very bad thing. Verse 17 says, therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Wow, that's pretty powerful. You know, we've got all of these commandments. We know the big ones, but that's a big one in itself, in that if you know to do the right thing, and you don't do it, you're sinning. You're doing the exact same thing as going out and committing murder or telling a lie. Because we know the right thing to do. And if I am chasing after God, if I'm talking to God, if I'm listening to the voice of God and seeking after Him in all that I do, and then He gives me a direction, He gives me a path, but I decide, you know, that's difficult, or that's not really the direction I wanted to go, Lord. Maybe another time, not right now. Right now I'm going to make a left here and head off this direction. I'm going to chase after these plans. If I know that the Lord has instructed me to do something, if the Lord has called me to do something, if the Lord has ordered my steps in a certain direction, and then I choose not to do it, I'm really wrong. I'm committing a sin, James tells us in verse 17, because I know the right thing to do. And then I decide to do my own thing. I decide I don't really need Him because I'm the smart guy. I'm the one that has all the answers. I like to read this verse, and immediately the thought comes to my head of Jonah. You know, the Lord, Jonah, he was a prophet. He was following the Lord, but then the Lord asked him to do something that he didn't really want to do, and so he went the opposite direction, and we know how it turned out. It wasn't too long before Jonah found himself in the belly of a whale. He had been tossed off a ship in the middle of a big storm as he was sailing, and then a big whale or a big fish came along and swallowed him up and ate him, and there he was, stuck in the belly of that whale for 3 days. And so the Lord could get him to a place where He could get his attention. Because Jonah knew the right thing to do. He knew that by the Lord asking him to go to his enemy and go to Nineveh and to preach to them and tell them about the goodness of the Lord, and to tell them that if they don't turn, then He was going to destroy them. In not going to do that, Jonah was wrong, and Jonah knew these things, and that's exactly what James is saying. Jonah sinned, we sin, James sinned. Anytime that we do the opposite of what the Lord has in plan for us. It's a sin, and I don't want to be guilty of a sin. I want to be able to listen to the voice of the Lord. I want to be able to follow after the voice of the Lord, the instructions of the Lord, and as He orders my steps, I want those steps to work out according to my plans. My plans have to come in line with God's plan for my life, not going rogue and trying to do my own thing, make my own plans for the future, not even tomorrow. I want to seek after the Lord. As I grow in my faith in Him, I want to be able to grow in my relationship with Him also. And that begins with making sure that I am walking in step and in faith with Him.